So this is going to be a tutorial on this right here. This is a connection notifier. Basically, local user is going to keep telling the remote user that its connection is alive and keep flipping between these two things. And if they don't, that marker comes up notifying them that you've lost connection in some way. Although technically it can also come up if the viewer lost connection. So I'm going to show how to implement that real quick. This took a while to make, and it's rather interesting system. So, starting fresh, say you have your avatar. What you want to do is, in your effects controller, which, for example case, I just threw this down and this down. So let's say this is an avatar you got and it just came like this. So we need to add the parameters into the controller that you're going to need. So you're going to want to add is local if it's not there. If it is there, you don't have to add it. Make sure the capitalization is the same too. It does matter. I capitalize, L capitalize. So we're going to need is local. We're going to need connection test. Now, this one's going to be optional. I recommend you use it, but entirely up to you. You don't have to spend this as like one of your save parameters if you don't want to. Connection notifier off. If you just want to disable the system. The point of that one is for stealth games, essentially, if someone were technically able to disconnect themselves and stay connected to the game and then reconnect, they could basically give away your position, sound and visually, or that kind of way. So that's why that exists, just to cover that edge case, maybe you would call it. So anyway, now that those are in, we want to go into the connection notifier folder, into the animator controller. I've got this basic one, which I'm going to show. There is an advanced one that's more if you're going to try to set up, say, like some crazy system. If you want to do like something fancy, but I'm not going to cover that here. I'm just going to go over this. So this one's simple because it's only this one layer. Now, here's an interesting trick you can do to copy stuff. You can right click into the empty space and you can say copy current state machine. Now, that means like all the parameters and everything. So we set those up already. These are the parameters in there. We set those same ones up. So we're going to be okay pasting this over. If you forgot to put the parameters, it's okay. You still can just add them afterward and it'll be fine. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our effects controller that we put here on the robot. And we're going to make a layer for that. So it doesn't matter what you name it. I'm just going to call it connection notifier. And it does matter that you do this. So you need to wait, put the wait to 1. Hit that little cog, go wait 1. And then we copied the state machine. So we're just going to paste it in there. And that is good. Now, this needs to be your default. If for some reason you had a state in there beforehand, then that's not going to magically become your default. You can fix that by right clicking and saying set as layer default state. And then that should become this kind of orange color. Okay. So it's good controller wise for that setup, but it still needs to have the actual connection notifier on it. So to get that, we're going to go into the prefab folder and you're going to pick one relevant to the platform you're going to upload to. So just to show that real quick of what I have, this is an example I set up. So just do that. This here up front is for Windows. These back here are for Android, and we're not seeing that one right now because that's a particle system. I wasn't playing it, so let's play. Okay, so this one is really solid. It'll face the camera, and it tries to maintain like a Y up look basically. It's pretty similar if you go like Android side, that's the closest you're gonna get. However, this is gonna push you into, I believe, like poor level as far as the performance ranks, which you might want to avoid that. I think by default, if I remember correctly, Android displays medium and better. But you could tell it, like they could tell the thing to display poor, and if they want to display very poor, I think they have to like actually show the avatar specifically in somewhat in some manner. So anyway, these white pillars represent players, so you can see that the Android is getting clipped, whereas the Windows is showing on top. That's because it's using like a custom shader I wrote. For these ones, you're just going to want to move them above the model pretty much. But for these ones, what we're going to do, since we're going to build for Windows right here, I set a close that. Okay, so back to the FBX. I set, and this is optional too. You can remove this, but anyway. So we're gonna grab out a mesh renderer, and I'm just gonna do the bounded quad. That was the first one we saw there. So I set a position constraint. Now, if you don't want to use a constraint, you can remove it, but preferably we don't. So this is actually useful, and here's why I put it on here. So we can add a source, and we're gonna go into the armature. So I want to put this on the chest area. I think that's a pretty good spot. So on the notifier, we will say chest of the armature into that. And then I'm just going to set it at the 0 point. So it's going to jump this thing over to like specifically where the head of that bone is essentially. So there we go. And now it'll follow that. It's not like a parent one though. So say you were to rotate, it's going to stay like where it is. Although because this is zeroed out, it's not like that would have really mattered. Now, for example, if we wanted to put it above our head using that, we could say, let's go to head, put it here. And I'm just going to hit that, but I'm going to undo it. Now I can move it above, and then I'm going to activate it at that offset. So now that'll stay above the head. So even if the head rotates, that'll just like stay above it specifically. So if you want to do it like that, you can do it like that too. But for this demonstration, I'm just gonna use this position. That's basically it. Like, it's done now, and you can use this in game. Now, if you want no audio or maybe no visual, you can also just plain remove these. Like, we can remove the visual, or we could remove the audio on both of these. That's up to you. I like it as it is. That's why I designed it this way. So here to show it working, I'm gonna play it. Now there's gonna be a bit of an echo because my microphone's active right now and it's gonna pick up my speakers, but basically what's gonna happen is the local user is gonna go through here and they're gonna keep playing these every second, essentially. The remote user, when the local user goes into here and sends something, is going to get moved over to here, and with the local user constantly sending stuff, they'll keep jumping between these two. Now, if this looks confusing, maybe you could go into my advanced section and look at the trigger. It's basically the concept. This is just using like two directions essentially, because we can't sync setting triggers in VR chat, but we can use bools, so that's why it's basically like this. So you'll jump between these, and I'll just show it really. So let's do that. So we'll pretend I'm the remote user. I'm not going to set is local, and I'm just going to say connection test. So they've moved over here. Now if they stay too long, they go there, and that thing appears. It's pretty quick because it takes 2 seconds of being in here before it decides it's going to move from here. Whereas the setting is like every second to keep you alive. Like say that the connection's alive. Now the connection notifier off, which was optional because you don't need to use this. This system will still work even if you don't add this. But for setting it off, that will kick you out of there. It will like if it happens to get in one of those zones, and it would also just move it over here from the connected states. So this is just good for stealth games, essentially, so people don't cheat using this to try to locate you. It's particularly bad for Windows, I would say, because on Windows we have audio. On Android you don't have audio, but Windows has audio. Well, technically people did some buggy thing for audio on Android, but anyway, Windows will have audio. For by default, I have a 20-meter range, and it falls off from the point where it starts. Like immediately, it starts falling off. Visually, the shaders I designed, if they're showing, render on top of things. Pretty much, like they're really up there, so it's very likely they're going to be on top of things. And they do have a system for like disabling them after 20 meters, like assuming you're seeing the proper shader rather than some fallback. After 20 meters, it will actually disappear by creating I believe it's called like degenerate triangles or something. So it shouldn't have the fragment shader right on it, so it should be basically gone at that point. Suppose I could sort of show what that looks like here. So if I zoom way out, you'll notice that it'll disappear. Not that I would say being an origin point is a very good spot. So let's not be an origin. I'll just do this. We're gonna move really far since I said that was 20. And then we'll go over to the robot again, and I'll basically show that, yeah, it is there. And if I zoom out the 20 meters, it disappears. Okay. Actually, I did forget one thing. This was important. So technically this won't work in VR chat until we do this. So I apologize for that. But there's one more thing that needs to be done to make this work. So in the expressions, parameters, you need to set these up. So just throw these on here for example case, but if you got a model from somewhere, these probably already exist, essentially. Like, if it was designed for VR chat, then these probably should exist already. So in the menu, I recommend adding this. Now, it's up to you what to name it. I just threw this name in. And then I set down a thing called connected icon. You can click this little thing and search for it if you want to find it. Just type in the search connected, and then you'll probably see it right there. You can pick that. That's just an icon for your action menu, which is the little radial menu you can pull up. Set it to toggle and set the parameter to connection notifier off. Now, if you're not using connection notifier off, because I said it was optional, if you don't want to use this, then that's fine. You don't have to add it. It does not have to be in your menu. For the parameters, this is what you want though. If you are using it, make sure it's set like this. And connection test is a necessity for this to work. So this one's not optional. This one's mandatory. You have to do this. Connection test, bool, and set it just like that. And that is basically it. That is everything. And you can set this up and let your friends know when you've crashed and so on. Basically, if your connection goes bad, they're going to see it because your model sticks around for a bit, waiting for you to essentially reconnect. If you didn't have a clean disconnection. Now, if you have a clean disconnection, this will not happen. Like if I say Alt F4 and the game's like, oh yeah, you close the game. It's not going to happen. I say kill the task and it decides it's going to like cleanly try and like everything. It's not going to happen. It'll be fine in those cases. But if you were to crash and the game, like the server is waiting for you to come back, then it's going to happen. And remotely, if that particular player's connection has some issue, then it will also happen because they can't receive it. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoy this system. And if you do want, it is optional. You can totally just change these out, like change the texture basically. So you can set your own custom image. Just make a texture, probably something like that, and then go to the material you're using and just put that into the main text and you would be good. All right, thanks for watching. And thanks for continuing to be watching because I forgot this part. So I actually recorded this in VR. There is voiceover here. That's kind of why you see me waving my hands around, but I'm just going to talk over it in this case. So that was the VR view of the bounded quad is what I'm calling in the FBX section if you look inside my folders. And it is just really solid for performance. This one right here is the cube. So basically, those Windows ones will render over things, like if they're visible. Now, my recommendation is if you're going Windows, use the bounded quad one, the one on the left. My recommendation for this Android is, again, use the one on the left. I think that one looks pretty good, to be fair. If you can't fit that for some reason, like you're really close on the polygons, you can use this one. Now, this one is two quads facing like different directions. So it maintains like that top right of the line going down on both sides. So that looks pretty good. Whereas the other one, which is just a regular quad using the alpha blended like particle material, does not. So it's facing the wrong way. Now, the one on the left here is the particle system, which resembles the one way over there. I just pointed to it. Like the closest. But you're still going to need to put that above the player. So all the Android ones, you need to put above the player or you're going to have problems. And I think I showed, well, I do show, okay, so I show like looking left and right while on this. It doesn't have like exactly as good of a Y up as the bounded quad over there, which, let me point this out really quick because this does matter for the bounded quad, just in case it happens to you. On optimized mesh, vertex order needs to be off. For some reason, I updated a project and I saw this actually flip on me, like it just said everything. That will not work. So this thing has, according to Unity, 12 verts, 2 tries. Now, if this is on, and I'm just going to apply that here. So if that is on, 4 verts, 2 tries. What it did was it got rid of the like cube that was surrounding the quad, and that won't work. So just to show that, let's throw this down again. Now that faces the camera perfectly, but if I go really to the edge here, it disappeared. This is why the box is important, because it functions as like a bounding box for that to keep it in view. So this was basically an interesting solution I came up with to solve this problem. So you want to make sure that this stays like this. So I would maybe give that a look after, say, updating the project, because I don't know why, but it automatically just changed on me. So that needs to be like that. Polygon order is okay, but vertex order needs to be off. All right, and then going back to this video to show that like left-right look, that rotates a bit. I can only go so far for this, compared to that, which is more solid. But generally, my recommendation is just take those ones on the left, which was the far ones from our current view, for putting on your avatar. So just like dig into the prefab folder and look for, on this one, cube alt UV. So it's a more organized, like try to keep it upwards kind of one generally, and prioritize forward facing from like above and below. And then for that one, the bounded quad. And then for this, I went a little further just to show what that happened, like what happens if the shaders aren't showing. That now clips through because it has to use the like the unlit transparent, and this only shows on the one side because it is a quad. So if that matters to you, you can go with the box shaped one. If you're concerned about like people having shaders off, like if you hang around a bunch of people with shaders off, then you might find this one more useful. And then like basically don't use Android shaders for Windows because that won't look right. Anyway, that's actually like the full thing, I believe. So thanks for watching.